Welcome, everyone. Oh, you know what? Let's get this out of the way. Welcome, everyone, to this Saturday's Chameleon Workshop. Very good to see you all here and see that a number of people are coming in. It's very good to see you. Today, we are doing something a tad bit different. So if you're watching this on the replay, know that this is a live session that happens with a live studio audience. And so you can be part of it every Saturday at 12 noon Pacific. And so join us. Feel free to join us. You can ask questions. You can just be in the audience. Today, we're going to be having a little bit more of a formal presentation. This is meant to be fully interactive, but for everyone here, I want to say I'm gonna give a bunch of hellos, but when we get into the material, I just want to say let's please keep the questions having to do with the material because I have to get through the material. This is for a specific purpose. We have a group of people bringing in a Furcifer bifidus. It's a rare chameleon, and this whole seminar today is about how we're going to acclimate and quarantine and get these guys off to a good start. So we actually have a purpose today, but I want to do a quick say hello to everybody in the chat. James is here. Oh, Sean McNeely. Wow. McZoo Exotic Pets. Lee Reddy. Reddy's Rainforest. Don't know if that's Lee and Amanda or just Lee. One of the two. And Tony, Geraldine, Wayne Beatties, Alex. Wonderful, wonderful to see you all here. Now, I will be having a presentation for anybody. I know some people like to listen to this show. Don't worry, you're not going to be missing anything. I will read out anything that's on the screen, and so you can go about your work day or workout, chores, whatever, and listen to this, and you won't miss a thing. So, all right, so let's go ahead and jump right into what it is we're doing here. So just a little bit of background. We have a number of people in the Chameleon Academy community that became interested in Furcifer bifidus. Now, Furcifer bifidus is a chameleon from, let's go ahead and bring that boy up. That is Furcifer bifidus. It's a very cool chameleon from Madagascar, and it is rarely seen, not because it's rare, not because it's rare in the wild, not because it's not brought in, but because it's just one of the many incredibly cool chameleons in Madagascar. And there's only so much attention that we have. And this is just one of the species that has not gotten the spotlight so much because there's so much else for us to be interested in. And I think we in the chameleon community have a very interesting, I won't say challenge, dilemma. We've got too much good stuff. There is even now where the countries that are exporting chameleons have been dwindling down to, I guess we got about two right now, Kenya and Madagascar. But even within just those two, there are so many cool species to work with. We can't get around to everything. So just because you may not have heard of this species doesn't mean it's a hard to work with species. In fact, Furcifer bifidus has been bred a number of times before, and it's just the person breeds it and says, well, this is really cool, and then goes on to one of the 50 other very, very cool chameleons out there. So, yeah, I'm going to bring up a couple of comments here. James Cross is part of the Furcifer bifidus breeding project. He says, don't know how you feel, Nate, but I'm really excited for this. And Nate, who's also part of the Furcifer bifidus project, says, I'm very excited. Now, if anybody here is interested in becoming part of the Furcifer bifidus project, you can send your email to me and ask me at bill@chameleonacademy.com and ask for more information. These our bifidus will be coming in probably in about 2 weeks. If anybody has had any experience with Madagascar shipments, you know, sometimes they come when they're supposed to, sometimes they don't. So there's a little bit of ambiguity here, but they are $500 per pair plus shipping. And if you're interested, send me an email. They're coming through One World Exotica, so I'm not selling them. I just cannot help but support any enthusiasm for starting a breeding project. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm the support guy. My passion is to work with the shamrock chameleons, but who am I to discourage enthusiasm in the chameleon community? So I am going to support this effort as much as is possible. So, here is Alex. Actually, has a very pertinent question. Is asking, do they come in rough from Madagascar sometimes? I have been absolutely amazed at the quality of the chameleons coming in from Madagascar lately. And this is not a coincidence. I remember back in the early 2000s when I was doing importing, and there were some pretty horrific things going on as far as importing, to the point where even I would have supported a complete ban of the trade of chameleons because they were being treated so poorly. Since then, a number of the importers in the United States put their foot down. They said, we can't, this can't go on. And so they've actually been working with the exporters and the trappers to provide for the chameleons and to treat them gently. And so the ones we are getting in now are, I am surprised. Some of them look captive hatched. I was actually surprised with some coming in. Now, every shipment is different. So you never know when you're going to get a bad shipment. You never know when somebody is going to leave a box out on the tarmac unprotected. So anything could happen. But to answer the question, generally speaking, we've been getting in some very good quality chameleons. And I am hoping, of course, that that continues with this. As for Furcifer bifidus itself, it doesn't necessarily come in worse for the wear. It's a pretty hardy chameleon, and it's actually a great candidate for captive breeding. So this project is very cool. The only reason why it hasn't caught on is because there's been so much more for to distract us. So I have all sorts of I believe that this little breeding project is going to be successful. But the thing is, the one thing that's important about making this successful is quarantine and acclimation, and that's the purpose for what we're here today. That is the purpose behind what we're doing today. Oh, and we want to say hello to Stephanie, who is now the Canopy Chronicles. Okay. Welcome, Stephanie. I was wondering. James says, what's the first thing you do when you open the box, Bill? Okay. You know what? We will get to that. We will get to that. Saying, Alex is clarifying his question. I was saying that they did come in rough, but they've gotten a lot better. Yes. That's true. All right. So let's go ahead and do, when you're going to bring in, let's get started. When you're going to bring in a species, the first thing you want to do, if you're going to figure out how to acclimate them, is figure out where they came from. And so we're going to do a little bit of a looking in to Furcifer bifidus. Where does it come from? And Furcifer bifidus comes from the northeastern coast. In fact, when we went there in January, the Chameleon Academy group with James Cross, we were at the southern tip of that range. And that's where James found the Furcifer bifidus. And actually, that picture of the male that I have right there is the Furcifer bifidus that James found. And the one on the right is a female that I had in captivity. So the significance of them being on the northeast is because we need to know what kind of conditions they're under. Right now, it's the dry season in Madagascar. And you've heard a lot of really horror stories about the dry season and how it kills chameleons, and this is true. But the dry season is not this homogeneous weather pattern. It hits different parts of Madagascar differently. In the west, it is brutal. In the east, it just means a little less rain. So in the east, the dry season isn't the death to chameleons that it is in the west. And when we were there in January, which is right before the dry season, I witnessed mating and I witnessed hatching, which means that there are babies that are hatching right at the end of the wet season and they're going into the dry season. Usually we think that when you have the diapause, it's to make sure that the babies hatch right before the wet season. And yeah, that's critical when you start getting into where the dry season really hits hard. But on the east, it's not that hard. And the significance of this is that the animals that are going to be coming in at this time of year, usually Madagascar shipments come in the winter and spring because that's the wet season. The animals coming in are not necessarily going to be animals that came in under hardship. So it's just something for us to consider. And if you look at these animals, I don't see that changing hydration needs to be part of any seasonality that we work with. Changing the temperature may be. Now, they're going to be coming in, if they coming in right now, they've had a couple of months of the dry season already. And so they will be in another couple of months, they're going to be going into the wet season, which usually happens about October and November. Therefore, and I'm going somewhere with all of this, it's not just a bunch of facts thrown out there. We have to consider where they were. Right now, they're in areas, and I have the June temperature chart up so you can see what the temperatures were, what kind of rainfall, what kind of cloud cover. And so they've been experiencing temperatures in the 70s, low 70s, down to the 60s. And when they're going to be coming over here, they're going to be coming over here in the summer, where we have summers that go into like that. Some of us, the 90s. And so we are essentially, if we don't keep them in a room, we're essentially throwing them straight into the wet season, a warm wet season. And so it's important that we realize that when they come in, we probably want to ease them into our summer, and they can get enough of a wet season, and then they're going to be going back into their dry season, which is our winter. And by helping them ease into this total switch up of temperatures between, southern hemisphere, their December, January is the warm part, and their summer is the cool part. So we're flipping them. And this is actually a very good time for them to come in as far as acclimation. Let's keep in mind that we have to go through that acclimation. Now, this is important because those of us in the breeding program, we want to be able to breed them, and the seasonal cues may have something to do with triggering the breeding. I do not know those seasonal cues as far as bifidus at this point. I'm discussing things with people who have bred them before, and so I'll be having more information coming. But at this point, I can't give you that information just now. So we're looking into it, and you know what? We're going to find out ourselves. So someone says there, I wish I had gotten pair. Well, Stephanie, the fact is that somebody who had signed up for a pair has disappeared. And so now I have taken that place. But that means that because I committed to a certain number of pairs before One World Exotica would be willing to bring them in. So if you want to join up and be on the list, just email me and we can get you on the list. So that is temperature and for acclimation. Now let's start thinking about how we're going to bring them, how we're going to set up to receive these Furcifer bifidus. There are two things that we want to talk about when we talk about quarantine. And this is important for us to strategically set up the cage. And one is privacy. And then we're going to be talking about a lot about parasites. So first of all, Furcifer bifidus is known to be a little bit of a private chameleon, but any chameleon coming in from the wild should be considered, should be priority, privacy needs to be a top priority for any chameleon coming in from the wild. Imagine what's going on here. You're a chameleon. You are used to all of this space with all the pros and cons that come with space. You're number one, you're used to going wherever you want to, but also you're used to looking for predators at every turn. So it's not like they're living in the Garden of Eden, but this isn't a measure of good and bad. This is a measure of what are they used to and what are they now in. Say they're not going to know what a cage is. This is for anybody who is watching this, who's thinking, yeah, I'll get a wild caught. No, don't get a wild caught. Get a captive hatched. They know what a cage is. They know that the cage is their home. They know that the cage is their safety, their security. If you leave the door, if you have a well set up chameleon cage and you leave the door open, they won't come out. They are happy. That's the sign that you've got a good cage. But a wild caught doesn't know what a cage is yet. So when they first come over, and that's why I say, if you're starting off and you're watching this and you're starting off, get a captive hatched. You don't have to go through all the stuff that I'm talking about right now. The people who go through all this stuff right now are the breeders. These are people who will have to bring in the new bloodlines. These are the people who are bringing in the bloodlines that are going to make the captive hatched ones that are just incredibly robust for you. So this is for the breeders. So okay, so when they come in, they have to figure out what a cage is. And they will. It won't take them long before they realize, hey, this is my safe haven. I'm good here. But we've got to make sure that they can get to that point. What they need is privacy. They need to be able to feel hidden. They will feel exposed. And so this is why it's important when we put a cage together that we have areas that are hidden. Now, I'm going to go into how I put together a quarantine cage, and with the caveat that this is the way I do it. And there will be some controversy because, what's life without controversy? So, and I'm going to show you what I mean by privacy, but you will see when I start getting into it, I advocate for a full-size 2x2 by 4 foot tall cage and live plants, but we'll get into that. I don't want to, we'll get into that. And then of course we need to deal with parasites, and there's always the argument, but they've got parasites in the wild. Why do we need to deal with them in captivity? Two big reasons. Well, the one big reason is we knock off the natural balance. We with our little human hands, we destroy the balance that they have in nature. Yes, chameleons have parasites in the wild. They have a low level of parasites, and there's this balance between the parasites have learned to reproduce at this certain rate to just stay just ahead of the immune system, which is knocking them down, and the chameleon goes with a healthy life. No parasite wants to kill their host, but there's a balance. It's a death balance of the immune system killing the parasites and the parasites reproducing to just stay ahead of the immune system. Everybody's happy. But what happens when we stress the chameleon? We degrade the immune system. We suppress the immune system. That's what happens when we stress chameleons. And so when we suppress the immune system isn't able to kill as many of the parasites, and the parasites start growing out of control. If the parasites had a brain, they'd be saying, hey, wait a minute, this is not good because we're going to kill our host. And we put the chameleon in transit. They end up being exposed to other chameleons, and so that's more parasites, and then they're kept in small areas. And so the poop that carries enough parasitic infectious material to survive in the forests of Madagascar is now contained within a small area with the host, with the food, which is the delivery mechanism. And so we've knocked it totally out of balance. We have to go in and put it back into balance for the sake of not only the chameleon, but the parasites themselves. So, all right, let's go ahead, and I'm just gonna before I go into cages, let me know if there's any questions about what we've talked about already. I'm gonna check the chat here. We've got Eliza Ann here, and Janet's here for moral support. Thank you very much, Janet. Justin is asking, do they get used to you over time or still very shy? They will get used to their cage, and they will get used to you somewhat. It all depends on the individual. Furcifer bifidus tends to be a little bit of more of a shy chameleon, so they won't be as gregarious and accepting as a panther chameleon. They're a little bit more spicy than some other chameleons, whereas my Parsons chameleon will let me know when he's annoyed by me. My bifidus goes straight to letting me know he's about to bite me. And it's not like he's coming after me. It's like he does this looking at me with this very slow turnaround with his mouth open in an unmistakable communication as to what's about to happen. So these aren't, I'm sure you all know by now, chameleons aren't really meant for handling, but these have even less tolerance for it. They can. I take my bifidus out. I did a photo shoot with him. He wasn't happy about it, but I did it quickly and brought him back in. But they will, this species will stay shy, but there will be variations within from individuals, as always. Are the chameleons being kept separately when being imported? They are packaged separately, but I am sure they are not being kept separately at the exporter facility. That's just, we just don't get the chance for that. So, oh, hey, we got Craig. Craig is actually someone who has bred them before. Welcome. Bifidus don't really like people. Yep, okay. Sounds like that is consistent. So, okay. Now, we're going to be going into my preferred quarantine cage. I want to let you know that this is something that I do, and I'm going to explain what I do. This is not universally accepted, and a number of the components that I do in my quarantine will be fiercely debated and out there. So just know that I am providing to you what I have, what I do, what's been very successful for me. I will explain why, and you can take all of that, put it all together, and make your own decision. So, first of all, as far as quarantine, I still like bigger is better. I know it's very convenient to have a smaller quarantine cage because you're thinking about throwing everything away. Yes, you are absolutely right. I like a bigger cage because it allows me to put a clump of plants front and high. I do like live plants, and we will talk more about that because, I mean, there's different ways of doing it. We will talk all about these things, and I will explain. I like bigger because these chameleons are coming in and they don't understand cages, and so they need to feel secure. This is why I like to put a clump of plants up high and to the front of the cage. And if I have a large cage, I am able to do that and still keep these plants away from the poop that's generated. And we're going to get into that. We're really going to get into that because that's very important. And I have a plastic floor. I don't think that's controversial at all. Plastic floor, because that poop, we don't want it to get into substrate. So, and you're saying, but Bill, you just said that you have live plants. How do you avoid substrate? Yeah, okay, we're going to get into that. So this is what I do. This is a picture of two of the quarantine cages. And so what you can see, and this is completely deliberate, is that it looks like it's a heavily planted cage. And in a way it is. But the way, and we're going to call this Bill's preferred quarantine cage. This is the BPQC. All right. You heard it here. So this is what I do. And this is what you want to create in your cages. So it may be a little bit difficult to see, but I'm going to explain every aspect of this. So in the first picture, what we see is and I'm doing this with a typical Reptibreeze. I can't do this with the Dragon Strand because you can't see through the walls. Well, with the Reptibreeze you can. So what I have is a Reptibreeze 2x2x4, and I specifically take all of my plants and I put them to the front. And then all of the branches are in the back. And so what you can see is that the first picture is a picture being taken from the back of the cage. So you see all of the branches in back, and then you see the plants. So there is no convenient perching in the plant area. It's all behind the plant area. But the plant area provides the visual block that gives them the privacy, that gives them the security. Now, we want to be very careful about where the poop goes because that's got all the parasites we're looking for. So I have strategically as possible, you can never do it perfectly, but as strategically as possible, I have a branch network behind the plants and actually under the plants set up so no branch is over a branch below it. And this, you can't do it 100%, and you got to be really careful. But that last picture that I have there on the right shows I got up on top of the cage and put the camera pointing down so you can see that there's no branch that's, number one, there's no branch that is under another branch, and there's no branch that is over any of the plants. And I mean, chameleons sometimes will not cooperate with this strategy. But in this case, I've been able to do it so the chameleon does not go on the plants. And why is this important? We don't want that cloaca getting anywhere near a place that they're going to drink, because it's the parasitic, the infectious material from the parasites comes with the poop. And wherever that poop goes, you have that infectious material. So this is the way I do it. Now, if you're going to be doing it with any other cage, you don't have, you can do it. Okay. We'll say you can do this with any cage, but you take these principles, even a smaller cage. They want privacy, security, and treat their butt like a biohazard. Okay. And there you go. We got little, we got Spearmint there on the left, who has actually just finished his quarantine, and to the right, there's that biohazard that's on the bottom that shows you how it works. Okay, so that's the setup, and I'm going to be going into breaking the parasitic life cycle with husbandry. And so, is there any questions about what I just presented? Yeah, BPQC rolls right off the. That's right. Oh, my set up the standard. He says, if they cooperated, it wouldn't be so frustratingly satisfying when the job is well done. Yes, actually, I was very happy with how this worked. And I'll just say every chameleon will be different. With the shamrock chameleons, Spearmint over there really cooperated with this, and he would not crawl in the plants. He was happy being on the branches behind. Spearmint, who was in the cage next to him, was exactly the same way. And so if you give them enough of that climbing surface behind, they don't have a need to climb on the plants, which is what we want. But if you have somebody but the shamrock chameleons are going to be like the bifidus. They kind of shy. They don't want to come out. Now, panther chameleon may not be as easy to do that because, like in the natural world, they're rambling man. They just go all over the place. And everyone's going to be different. How often do you need to clean? I clean whenever they poop. And I go in every day. I don't even like there to be standing water. So sometimes I just wipe it up even if there isn't poop. Because when the poop hits, you've got this little microscopic explosion, and so things go all over the place, and anything touching the water is dangerous. So you see in that picture there that he pooped. I did a misting session, and sometimes that's when the chameleon decides to poop, because they like to poop when it rains. So you can't always avoid it. And cleaning, if you wipe it up right away, that will remove the parasites. That will remove the bulk of the parasites. Nothing that we do is 100%. So we play the odds, and I'm about to get into a discussion about exactly that. So let's go ahead and he's asking, would you recommend wiping with alcohol or some kind of acting antibacterial? Yes, I do. But I also want to say, I want to go into that more a little bit. I have a whole slide on that for us to discuss how militant we should get on that. So, say poop gets on a branch. Do you replace the branch or scrub it down? Oh, replace the branch. You cannot. If they poop on a branch, replace the branch. You cannot get it out. And quarantine's a real pain in the butt. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of work. So if you're doing this for a pet, just don't do it for a pet. Do wild caught because you have to. See, Lee is saying, I remember an interview with you and Rob Koch. He highly recommended rescue wipes, and they have really helped us out in spot cleaning. Yep. Yeah. All right, everybody. Let's talk about parasites, because this is one of the things we quarantine about. We want to get rid of the parasites. We quarantine about to find all the other things that are going on, all the other things we don't know to look for. And I'll have a picture coming up of some of the stuff I've gotten as a wild caught. When we're quarantining, we're looking for infections that come out. We're looking for physical ailments that come out, all sorts of stuff. But parasites is almost always something we have to deal with. So let's go into breaking the parasitic life cycle. And this is something that you can do even though you don't have a microscope, even if you don't know that you have parasites. And this is something that you should do every day. Everybody should be doing this every day. This husbandry method to disrupt the parasite life cycle. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to give you 3 points that we can break the parasitic life cycle. First is the reproductive stage, and that is the adults that are inside the chameleon. There's a number of different kind of parasites, major parasites that we deal with, and some of them are easier to get at than others, and some of them are more dangerous to try to kill than others. But the fact is, you've got these adults forms that are inside the chameleon that are producing infectious material that go out with the poop. And of all of these forms, it's only coccidia, the thing that people panic about, that's actually self-limiting. Coccidia doesn't have a form that stays inside the chameleon. Everything transforms into oocysts and goes out the back. And so coccidia requires a constant refresh. But everything else, you're talking about your entamoeba, your nematodes, they have adult forms that are sitting inside of the chameleon that continue to produce. So it's the medicines that help do that, take care of that. Then there's the infectious stage that comes out. This is the poop. This is what we have access to. And then there's the exposure stage, because whatever comes out into the poop has to go back into the chameleon. And so these are 3 points that we can disrupt the parasitic life cycle. And just to let you know, if you're interested in parasites, I want to talk about this hunting microscopic chameleon parasites. I made an entire course to explain the details of all of this that we're going over. I'm going to be going over a high level of it, but if you want to go into a deep dive, this course, it's available, chameleonacademy.com. You can go there. It's a community-powered course where we are, a number of the people here are part of it, and we are there to help you through it. There's a forum that goes with it. So you're not just taking this digital course in isolation. You're actually with us, and we can share and help you through it. So it's definitely a community-supported, community-powered. But it's a course that's available. It'll teach you how to pick a microscope, how to use a microscope, and how to identify parasites, the medicines, husbandry, working with your vet, all of that. Zero experience is necessary, but when you come out of it, you'll be able to do your own fecals. So let's go ahead and discuss how we can how we can break the parasitic life cycle at each one of these stages. So first is the adults that are inside the chameleon. There are two things that kill the adults. First is the medication, but the medication often is just supporting the immune system, because it's the immune system that is the biggest killer of parasites. So we generally have to come in with medication when the immune system has been compromised due to husbandry and whatever experiences they've been through. And so the medication has to knock down the parasites to the point where the immune system can take over. So we have to realize that the medicine is not the magic. The medicine only helps the immune system get back on top of things. And I make a point of saying that because whenever we talk about stress in a chameleon, stress compromises the immune system. And so by giving our chameleon top husbandry, we are combating parasites just by doing that. And this is why a lot of our captive hatched chameleons that are out there, all these panther chameleons are out there, they have parasites, but you don't know it. Why? Because you're giving great husbandry and your chameleon is able to handle that parasite load. It's a natural state. And as long as they're getting great husbandry, great nutrition, great heat, great UVB, water all the time, they're living really well, and parasites are no problem for them. So this is where we realize the immune system is life. So let's see. Justin is asking, does gut loading your bugs help fight parasites? Indirectly, it does. Because making sure your bugs are nutritious, that keeps the chameleon running at top level. That keeps the chameleon healthy. And that health, it keeps a strong immune system, which is what is our biggest weapon against parasites. So the answer is indirectly, absolutely. Well, maybe directly. If your insects aren't healthy, aren't nutritious, then yeah, all systems are going to fail. And it's actually not the parasites you got to worry about. It's everything failing. So, very important. Lee's asking, how long do you usually wait until introducing medication? I know everyone is different. Just curious on when you decide to start treatment. Lee, it depends. For me, it depends what parasites I'm treating, how dense the infection is, and how healthy the animal is, and what parasites it is. When we're talking about nematodes, fenbendazole, Panacur, I just do that. It is so safe. It's not going to hurt the animal. And by the way, the reason why fenbendazole is so, quote, safe is because it doesn't get absorbed into the blood system very well. Some of it does, but it stays mostly in the gut. That's why it's so safe, because it's not getting into the blood enough to threaten the blood-brain barrier. I am also with the panazerol. That's what treats coccidia. I have no problem doing that at any time. The one thing that I am very careful at is using metronidazole, the flagell, because that gets into every part of the body. And I have had chameleons not react very well, and it's pretty tough on the chameleon's body. And so I'll be very careful about doing metronidazole. So I don't have a chart as to when I do something. It's always a case-by-case basis. And somewhere along the way, I should try to put together a chart like that, but I don't know how I do that. So at least at this point, it's a case-by-case basis with me, but I start medication. I usually start as soon as I detect parasites. Now, I also say if I have an overwhelming infection of 3 different parasites, in that case, I will do one at a time just so I can avoid complete necrotic shock. So, hey, Nick, here. Okay, let's go to this infectious stage, and that's where we're talking about cleaning up the poop. So with the infectious stage, number 1 was killing adults. Number 2 is this is all of the oocysts and the cysts and sometimes even worms and ova. That is all contained in the poop. And the whole point of all of this stuff is to hitch a ride back to the chameleon's mouth. They don't necessarily mean the chameleon that they started with. They mean any chameleon in the Madagascar forest. And we just happen to contain all of this within the cage of our chameleon. And so the thing you want to do is as soon as that poop hits the ground, you clean it up. I love using these disinfectant wipes. I've used paper towels. But the disinfectant wipes are nice because it gets all the bacteria and stuff like that. Now, this is a point where I'd like to give you something to think about. So often we talk about, what kills coccidia? Do we go to the quats? Do we, we've got all this different, the different cleaners that some are just these varying levels of toxicity. And you have to leave them, if they're really going to work, you have to leave them for a while. So they really affect the oocysts and the cysts. And so you've got this kind of like this toxic wasteland that you're turning the bottom of your cage into, which is fine if you've taken the floor out and you are doing it somewhere else, like in the bathtub or something where you can get rid of all this stuff. And actually, the dragon strand cages, I include 2 floors specifically for this reason. So every dragon strand cage you get has a screen floor and it has a plastic floor. This is why, so you can take a floor out and clean it. But, just little factoid. Let's be careful not to introduce more and more caustic agents inside of the cage to the point where we could actually harm our chameleon. We don't have to kill everything. We don't have to kill anything, actually. We just have to separate it. So if we take just a paper towel, say we don't have any wipes at all, which I do, but say we just do a paper towel. If we remove all the infectious material and throw it away, the job is done. That stuff doesn't have to be killed. It is now never going to find a chameleon, so it will die on its own. Coccidiosis can live a year or 2. Okay, well, they can live a year or 2 in the dump, and they are effectively out of the chameleon's life. And so we don't have to kill things. Don't go and get the most effective cleaner as possible with the idea of killing things, because you're not going to be able to do it. The coccidiosis will get into the little crooks and crannies of the cage that you're not cleaning. The ones that'll probably get to the chameleon are not the ones on the bottom of the cage. It's the ones that are on the leaf that you brushed and are now on your hand and are now on the latch or the bottle of supplement. So we are not going to be able to do this 100%. And this is something we need to accept. Parasites have gotten very good at surviving in the jungles of Madagascar, and they've been able to get to their next host. And so they produce so many oocysts, and they have found ways of getting around that. We will not be able to kill them. Now, it doesn't mean we don't try. It just means that we accept that we are not going to be 100%. And we kill as many of the adults as we can. We remove as much of the infectious material as we can, and we put the odds in our favor. But don't, the one thing, I was talking to a vet, and I was saying, okay, so what's the one thing that we can use that's going to kill all of them? And he said, fire. I said, okay, fine, that doesn't help. But that's the truth. These guys, we are going to have a very tough time killing them, and so we need to work on other ways of dealing with this and not rely on trying to kill them. So, all right. Just checking to make sure that there's no more questions. All right, excellent. And then the third life stage is the exposure stage. This is where the oocyst, the cyst, the ova, whatever the infectious material is, gets back into the chameleon's mouth. And what can this be? This can be with both feeding and drinking. And so feeding, you see, remember the picture that I had before, a little cricket running through the poop? Yeah. Any escaped feeder running through the cage, getting down to the bottom, running through by the poop, or even running through the puddle that the poop landed in. Or, there's so many different places where these microscopic oocysts and stuff can latch on to a cricket. But remember, thank you to Yvette, who just brought me some iced coffee. Woohoo. But remember that these infectious materials, they are meant to, they're not trying to stick to anything. They want to stick to a cricket. They don't want to stick to the floor. So you can mechanically, this is why you can mechanically erase them or remove them, is because they are waiting to be picked up by a cricket. Now, can they be transmitted to the chameleon by the cricket eating the poop and eating the oocyst and stuff? Yes, because the oocyst is not going to break open inside of a cricket because it doesn't have the right cues. So it will be infectious until it poops out the oocyst. But we do need to stop the chameleon from feeding on things that have been exposed to the infectious material or drinking the things. You're saying, well, how do we do this? Well, let's talk about how we do this. First of all, feeding. We got to make sure that the crickets, the roaches, the superworm, everything is not exposed to the poop. And this means keeping them contained. The way we do this is the feeder run cup. That is, and by the way, little trivia here. This is originally what the feeder run cup was designed for. I don't know if you know it. I'm the one who invented the feeder run cup back in the early 2000s. And I did it because I needed to acclimate these chameleons that were being brought in. And I had to make sure that the insects didn't get out and run away, and that they didn't get exposed to the poop. And so, but they needed to have movement. When the insects got into the cup, they would just stay, and the chameleon wouldn't recognize them because they wouldn't move. Well, this back gave them the ability to move within a contained environment. This is exactly what it was invented for. So what I do in these quarantine situations is I make the feeder run cup out of very cheap materials. That is a 1 gallon water jug with sunscreen super glued to the back, and I have little holes poked into it. And the reason why I have this is because chameleons tend to poop in their feeder cup, and any water that's around. So I don't know what it is. I have literally caught my chameleons doing the whole twister thing to get their butt over a feed or run cup so they could poop in it. I don't know what's up with that. And, it may be behavior modification from the parasite saying, hey, this is a way that we can make sure that we get closer to their mouth. I don't know. But in this case, I'm able to just throw it away because I don't want to deal with trying to scrub out poop and stuff in a feeder cup where I know that they're going to be eating things. So if I make a cheap feeder run cup, then I can throw it away. And that's what I recommend you do. So don't get the nice ones until they pass quarantine. Yeah, parasite mind control. Justin, you're right. And it's freaky but it's true that parasites do exert behavioral changes on their hosts, especially the intermediate hosts, to make them more likely to be eaten by their definitive host. This is documented in the animal world. It even happens with humans. So toxoplasma, if you want stuff of nightmares, look toxoplasma up. But I'm not going to get to that right now. And hand feeding, as long as your hands are clean. This is why our Parsons community doesn't worry so much about parasites in those huge, huge cages. Well, they're not going to let their feeder insects run wild, are they? Because especially if you're feeding grasshoppers, because that's way too expensive. So they hand feed. So there is no opportunity for whatever is in the poop to get back into the chameleon's mouth. The entire floor of that cage may be a complete parasite colony filled with every type of parasite you can think of. But if they never get up to the chameleon's mouth, it doesn't matter. So I'm not saying to not worry about the parasites down there. I'm just saying that if you break the parasitic life cycle, you break the exposure stage in any way, that it doesn't matter if you've medicated or if you haven't medicated or if you haven't been cleaning at all. If the chameleon does not eat from any place other than from your hand, you've broken the life cycle. And that's the magic of having all these places to break the life cycle. And I've said you can't do it 100%, but if we do each one of these 98%, you can see how we've really put the odds in our favor of giving our chameleon, if not a parasite-free life, at least a parasite load that they absolutely can handle. Okay, drinking. This is where it gets a little iffy. Any open water is subject to getting infected with oocysts, trophozoites, whatever the stuff coming out. And so this is why I like having my plants up high and branches equal in height to the plants, so they're licking water off the leaves that's dripping down, and they've not had the opportunity to be rubbed on their butt. Now they take a trip around the plants. Yeah, okay, so there's that 2% that we don't control. This is also where I absolutely love fogging. If you can hydrate through fog, a whole night of fogging, you can see how you have now eliminated their need to lick surfaces that could be infected. And so I have absolutely loved using fogging as a hydration method in quarantine. All right. Now I'm going to read this for everybody who is listening and not watching the screen. Now, what I'm talking about is quarantine is if you already have chameleons, and everybody who is getting these these bifidus, already has chameleons. Separate them by time and space. And by that I mean have your quarantine chameleons ideally in a different room with different equipment. So they're separated completely by space. You're not bringing anything from one room to the other. And so your chameleons that you have already has their own equipment, their own supplement jar, their own cricket bin, everything separate. And then your quarantine chameleons have everything separate. Just break it up so you're not bringing one thing, anything from one area to the other. Second, separate the care by time, meaning in the morning, take care of your present chameleons, and then in the evening, take care of your quarantine chameleons. Always take care of your clean chameleons before you take care of your quarantine chameleons. Like I said before, there is no 100%, but if you separate things in time and space, you keep adding up all of those 98%, and the percentage where something gets through goes smaller and smaller and smaller, and that's what we've got to work with. So, okay, so that's what this next quote is. We can never have 100% success with disrupting them, but every time, every point that we get better and better and better, we just reduce the opportunity for parasites and other pathogens to jump. Nate says, so if I don't have a different room, am I cooked? Nate, it just means you've got to be really careful. So having a different room makes it easier. If you have them all in the same room, it just means you've got to be a lot more careful. But you can definitely do the things in the same room. The thing with chameleons, we chameleon keepers, we keep our chameleons separated. And so it's almost as if they have a lifetime of quarantine, which is good. So we chameleon people don't necessarily have as many problems with quarantine as other reptile people do. Number one, our reptiles don't run through the poop on a daily basis, so at least we have that space broken up. But no, you can have them in the same room. Just you have to be extra mindful not to go from your quarantine chameleons to your clean chameleons, because the number one thing that transports infectious material are these things. And all it takes is you wiping up the poop and brushing the leaf that the poop hit on its way down, and now you've got infectious material here. And where does that touch, and where does that touch, and then touch? And so, we're all just playing the odds. We're all playing the odds. And finally, want to change the way we think about parasites. Parasites are an ongoing condition of keeping chameleons. There is a relationship between chameleons and parasites, and it is difficult to be totally clear of parasites. Yes, you can totally medicate your chameleon and keep checking, and especially if you've got your own microscope and you don't go anywhere. But here's the problem. Parasites have evolved to be able to somehow get from the dirt on the Madagascar floor all the way up to the chameleons that are in the trees. How do they do that? Well, they've got to be really careful, really clever about hitching rides with other organisms, especially the food organisms. We in the chameleon community, we in the reptile community, we do that for them. We all congregate at reptile shows. We hold our reptiles. We all gather together at reptile shows. We hang out. If you touch the bathroom knob of somebody, the doorknob, after somebody who has oocysts on their hands, well, now you have oocysts on their hands. If you go to the pet store and you get crickets, well, the crickets may not have parasites. And there's a study saying that parasites don't come with the crickets. But what about the bag that the crickets are in? Did the pet store employee just handle a bearded dragon to show some kid and then went and gathered your crickets? And so now you've got oocysts on that bag. You go to the vet. Well, you've got reptile people all over the place. Any place that human beings gather, they will be bringing parasitic infectious material with them, because that's what parasites do. You're thinking that's gross. And is that far-fetched? No, it's not. This is why when you find that you have parasites in your chameleon, the first thing you want to do is go back to the breeder. You've got the problem. Why did you give me parasites? It may have been you. It may have been you bringing parasites into your home before you even got the chameleon. If you went to a reptile show, you could have brought Coccidia oocysts back, and those things can live for 2 years. So it may have been waiting in your home, just waiting for you to then transport it to your chameleon by picking up a cricket. And so you're thinking, wow, all the things that have to go into making that happen. Yeah. But the reason why parasites survive is because they create tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these things and blanket the whole world with them. So what we should do is look at parasites not as a war we win and we're done with, but it's a ongoing series of battles, and just accept it. So if you find parasites, like the people who've taken my course, and we're talking in the forum, it's just, we keep checking and we find less and less and less, but we're not surprised if we find them again, and we just treat and we're done. It's not a big deal. Parasites are not a big deal. It's something that you have to manage so it doesn't become a big deal. But if you find parasites, it's just part of keeping chameleons. And so I don't want to normalize parasites. I don't want to say they're okay and we ignore it when it happens, but it's not something that we need to panic about. So, yeah, Nick says reptile exomes are probably the #1 place for parasite contamination. Yep. And Tony's saying flying insects can possibly bring parasites up to the trees where they end up in a chameleon's mouth. Yep, that is what the parasites are hoping for. So when the chameleons come in, and here's that question that James had about what do we do when you open the box? First of all, remember, they are coming. This is their most vulnerable state. They do not know what's going on. They do not know what you are. This very ugly hairless lemur they have no idea what you're up to. Are you going to eat them? They don't know what a pet is. And so they're very confused. They don't understand cages, and they're stressed because of everything they went through. So we need to do everything possible to de-stress them. And these are what we are going to be doing to help this recovery. We understand their condition. I'm going to go through all of these: condition, hydration, privacy, food, and the parasite bloom. First of all, their condition. When they come in, it's important to do a physical inspection. Now, you don't want to stress them out, but this is when you open the box, let them crawl out onto your hand. It's a bifidus. It may try to bite you. I don't know. Okay. They're not that bad, but they are spicy. So take a look at their hands and their tail and make sure everything is in working order and there isn't any obvious damage that needs vet attention. So is there like a limp hand or a broken tail? This is stuff that needs veterinary attention. So you want to do that overall. Look at the eyes. How is their physical condition? And then you're going to put them into your cage, and over time, you're going to be doing a behavior observation. When they come out of that box, they are hyped up on adrenaline. So that can cover up some of the things that that may be a problem that you will notice once they settle in. So this is important. And give them medical attention when necessary. Know that something like a broken ankle or something, it may swell up later. You know how when you can break something, you can keep walking on it because your body is just filled with adrenaline or whatever. So some of these conditions may rise to the surface after the chameleon has a chance to settle in. Okay. Here's a little montage of all sorts of things that I have encountered in import chameleons. Anything from broken jawbones to weird pus-filled things, and some of it's important. Some of it needs medical attention. Some of it is absolutely deadly. And it's just something you got to watch for. Okay. And hydration. This is perhaps the most important thing, is hydration. I like to do hydration over time. So when I get my chameleons in, I put them in their cage. And obviously I've got plants in my cage. I've got a nice setup cage. And so I run the misters. I just run the misters, and that can be an hour, 2 hours. I don't care at this point. I am just going to be, when they first come in, they get the misters. Since I have a large enough cage, the misters come down, and so it's a gentle mist. I know a lot of people like to put their chameleons in the shower. It's a good idea, but the thing is that the chameleon can feel pelted, because that's the very big drops. You got to make sure that the application of water isn't causing stress. So I don't like using the shower. I have used it before, but I much prefer the Mist King misters. And then at night, fog all night. I give my chameleons I just give them a lot of hydration. And I will, especially with the mister, I will keep it going after they will first kind of huddle in, and then they'll relax, and then they'll start drinking and drinking and drinking. I keep it going until they've stopped drinking and they've huddled in for a while. And then they get a whole night of fogging. And then in the morning, I give them another long session, and I watch for when they start drinking, and I mist until they've stopped drinking. And I like doing the more gentle thing over a long period of time. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. That's the way I do it. I like the gentle hydration over a long period of time. That's what I like to do. And privacy. Handle them only if necessary. I probably don't have to say this to this crowd. Don't show them off to your friends. You all know these are wild-caught chameleons. They're not. They're trying to figure life out. Leave them alone, and don't. You want to check on them just to check on how they're doing. Avoid. You can do photo shoots. That's not going to kill them, but reduce the amount of interaction you have and keep them separated from other chameleons. They will ease into a situation. I visually block them from other chameleons. They will ease into the point where they now say, oh, okay, this is my territory. That guy's that territory. And it doesn't have to be like this forever. But in the beginning, reduce the amount of stimulation and things that they have to figure out. Just go easy on the poor guys. Let's see. And also, keep everything going on around the cage. Keep it to a minimum. So don't put that cage in a high traffic area. You don't want dogs running around and kids running around and such. In a quiet corner is best for these guys. And for food, some chameleons come out of the box. They are ready to eat anything and everything, and they are just they seem like they've come into heaven, and they are just happy to be there. So, I mean, I've had chameleons come out and they just sit at the top of their cage. They are like kings of their land, and they ease into me being their servant, and they just can't wait for me to bring them the next feeder. Because I try a variety of feeders with wild caughts. You never know what they like or what they'll accept. Silkworms, superworms, dubias, banded crickets, black crickets, all this stuff. I'll bring in hornworms. I try everything. And I've had wild caughts come in and they just think that they're in heaven and they're just waiting for me to bring their new thing. That's the easy acclimation. Then I have other chameleons that it takes a while and they aren't so sure about these new food items. And so I try one feeder item at a time to see which one they accept, which then they like. And then we slowly ease into the other ones. So that's the way I do it. You can do it however you want to. It's not like it's going to make or break the entire process. So I do that, and I keep track of feeding. It's a semi-important thing. You will keep track of how much they're eating based on how much they poop and how often they poop. But I would use your feeder run cup. Be careful to know how much they are eating. And this tells you what they're eating. Do they like superworms? Do they like crickets? Do they like silkworm? Well, what is it they like? So you're getting to know your chameleon as much as they are getting to know you and what you have to offer. And then there's parasites, of course. Parasites are, even if they were in balance in the wild, they are no longer, we cannot assume that they're going to be in balance in captivity. And so get that poop. As soon as you get a poop, take it in and get it checked. And for those of you who do your own fecals, you know what to do. You already know what to do. You've already been waiting for this because this is what's exciting for you. You people, I tell you, crazy people. And by the way, I'm joking because I am the worst. I get excited about any poop. And okay. You know what? Just going to show, we'll talk about a little bit of what's on the picture just for the people because this is fun. On the left, that is a pinworm ova. I love those so much. And you know what? We got good pinworms. You look at the pinworm ova for bearded dragons, they are ugly. Ugh. We got these nice, clear ones. Yeah, I tell you. Kind of a parasite snob. And the one number 2 over, those are entamoeba cysts. And entamoeba, they can either be deadly and damaging, like entamoeba invadens, or they can be commensal and not mean anything, like entamoeba coli. Which one they are, very difficult to tell. That's whenever I start seeing a bunch of those, I take it to a professional lab because I do not want to take a chance. Next to that is probably a hookworm ova. That's a nematode ova. And I think, I'm guessing it's a hookworm, but they're pretty much dealt with the same way. Next one over there is a Coleomeria oocyst. Could be Emeria. It's a type of coccidia. And then the one at the end, that's an Isospora oocyst coccidia. We have 2 types of coccidia that we work with. Although the Emeria and Coleomeria, they used to be the same. You know, coccidia drama. Yeah, we got all sorts of stuff that we go through here. So, all right. I'll get that fecal to you right away, Bill. Yeah. This is James. He's saying that because he knows he's provoking me. He's got a microscope. We're going to have James get that microscope out and do his own fecals. So for those of you who are getting the bifidus in, they'll probably be in a couple of weeks. That's the best guess at this point. Madagascar is a beast to its own. It's kind of hard to predict, but that's what we think. We may get subadults, which means that you won't be breeding immediately. But I got to tell you, if you can get a subadult, oh my goodness, that it's good to wait to breed. The young chameleons come in, they haven't had as many life experiences, they're more adaptable, they usually have less parasite load. So if we get subadults, that is a bonus. It's the season. This is now the middle of the dry season there, but we will probably be able to switch them over to wet season. Say, okay, it's now wet season to correspond with our summer. It should be an easy acclimation. And then keep track of feeding. Make sure you know what they're eating and what they like. See, the problem is if you don't use a feed-to-run cup and you do any free-range stuff, not only are they going to pick up parasites, but you have no idea what they're eating. And sometimes they don't feel so good and they don't eat. Not cool. And then let's talk about what we're doing. Let's keep a perspective. I know we're having fun. We've gotten excited about this species, and it'd be fun to establish these species. We'll probably get at least 5 pairs in, and so if they all are healthy and survive and they reproduce, we'll have a number of unrelated bloodlines. Now, establishing a species is difficult. It's because it has to do with market forces and not just enthusiasm. And it's market forces a long period of time. And this is difficult. I have tried working with establishing species many times. I have yet to succeed. And so I have come away with quite the education. And so I understand the difficulties here. But it really doesn't matter what the end is on this. What matters is we're going to get them. We're going to, there should be no reason that we can't reproduce and have an F1 number of F1s bloodlines of Furcifer bifidus. These have been, a number of people have reproduced them before. And so the community experience is there. And this is a hardy species. So we should be able to do this and be successful. But I want to say we're going to be doing this a little bit more than just, okay, we've got a bunch of babies. I'm going to be documenting what we do. I'm going to be putting it together in one of my care guides in a bit more of a substantial care guide. And so not just these 1 or 2 pages, I'm going to put together a booklet of this. And our goal is that, we're going to celebrate when we have the first mating. We got to celebrate when we have the first eggs laid. We're going to celebrate when the babies are up. We're going to have all sorts of celebrations and appreciate the milestones that we reach. But the biggest thing that we can call success is if somebody outside of our group takes the information that we have compiled and gets 2 F1 individuals and produces an F2 clutch. That is when we know that we have made a difference. Oh, it's very exciting when people breed a rare species, but it just disappears into history if that experience, that knowledge isn't transferred into the community to where somebody else can do it. And we've had so many species that have been reproduced that are no longer here, and nobody is working with them because that information just wasn't brought into the public or made it available. It's not like people are hiding the information. It's just it never got out. And so we're going to make sure, no matter what happens with this group, we're going to make sure that all of our experience is recorded and made available. And that's what I'm going to do. As you all are working with the bifidus, I'm going to be here to support you. I'm going to be here to record what's going on and make sure our experiences are available for anybody else in the future who wants to work with Furcifer bifidus. So, whew. All right. And by the way, luckily, I do have a Furcifer bifidus care guide, and it's been sitting around for a while. It's not like I did this before the Parsons one. So this is available on the Chameleon Academy website, and actually in the description to this video, there's going to be a link to this thing, and it's just something that's going to get us started. I do not have one thing I do not have, even though I have access to all of them. I decided I am not going to do the reproduction stage. I'm not the sheet. I am going to have people from our group. I'm going to use photos from our group to fill in all of these photos. And so we are going to do this. We're going to build this care guide together. So, all right, everybody. Now we're open for questions. Questions about bifidus, questions about acclimation, quarantine, parasites, hydration, anything. That is my presentation, and so I am ready. Let's discuss. What kind of things are you interested that you would like to know more about? I think I'm excited for this project, even though it's not my chosen number one project. And the reason why it's not my chosen project is because I can only have one number one, and I am restricted myself to having only one number one, because if I don't do that, then I will have 5 number ones, because I know myself. So this is so cool. I didn't know we were doing half of this. Even more excited. Okay, great. I'm glad you're excited, Nate. Yes. And I have seen the cages that James has set up for these. And so, yeah, they're going to be treated very well. And so, and maybe we'll talk about the transition from quarantine to not quarantine, especially if you're using the same cage. You just have to be ready to change out the branches and change out the plants. And, depending upon what parasites you find, it just tells you how important it is to disassemble the cage and then disinfect it. What do you have to go through? And, so that's why it's really good to know what parasites you have, what you end up with. But just be ready for whatever you put into the cage for quarantine, that it may have to be replaced. And it's as simple as that. Yeah. Okay. So the branches have to go. And that's okay, because I think, I know it's more convenient to put the chameleon in a temporary enclosure, but we have to take care of them as far as their stress levels. And so whatever temporary enclosure you use, if you're going to do that, be very careful that it's not a compromise on the care that the chameleon experiences, because that we need to bring that stress down. They have to feel secure. And like I said, the immune system is our number one friend to acclimating them and getting them healthy. So we have to make sure that they are in a very low stress environment. Nick says, I love the bifidus plan. They're like little giant Furcifer petri. Yeah, they are. They are. So, let's see. Excellent session, Bill. Feeling really good about Reggie being captive bred. Yes, everybody. If you have a chance to get captive bred, do it. It is so worth it. I got to tell you, the things that we are going to experience in bringing in Furcifer bifidus, it's exciting. It's what we have to do if we want to be able to work with this species, because captive hatch just aren't available. And there's just so many things that we have to go through, and there's so many things that could happen. I mean, some of these chameleons, there may be some internal problems we can't do anything about, and they drop dead. It's like, So if you have a chance to get captive bred, I mean, I have a lot of experience with wild caught. I can work with any wild caught, and I will pay double to get a captive hatched. It's just the experience is so much more enjoyable, and really, guys, we're here to enjoy our chameleons, and so we do what it takes to enjoy it. Janet's asking, would quarantine be best for a full year? We say the minimum is 3 months and 3 negative fecals. But we chameleon people, I mean, the question is, what does quarantine mean? When you take a chameleon out of quarantine, what really changes? We chameleon people keep our chameleons in quarantines for their entire lives. And we should be careful their entire lives. And so it's not that big of a change. Like Spearmint, I've had him in quarantine for over a year. And the only thing that coming out of quarantine means for me is that I'm going to be now moving him into a cage that has a substrate that has bioactive. That's the only thing it means to me. So if you want to go to bioactive, at least 3 months, but I would do 6 months. I had my carpet chameleon that she actually went through 3 months of quarantine, and then the 4th month, had this crazy infection that I've never seen before, and she recovered from the infection. But such crazy stuff like that comes in with wild caughts. So. What is the science behind not misting during the day? I just wonder, because you can't tell me it only rains at night in the wild. I was asked by my sister, and all I could say was respiratory infection. Oh, okay, Lisa. Not misting during the day was an absolute oversimplification of a concept that I don't think was necessary. Being very careful here how to say this, because this is a controversial topic. You'll notice on my care guides, I've always had misting during the day. I have no problem with that. Me going to most of my hydration being at night is because it is so much better. The end result is so much better than misting during the day, because at night you can hydrate. The chameleon wakes up hydrated and doesn't have to drink multiple times during the day. So this not misting during the day is something that Peter Nechas came up with and pushed very forcefully, because when you have high heat, I'm not going to be able to explain it. I know I can explain why he says don't fog during the day, because you don't want the hotter the air, the more water it can hold, and so it gets harder to breathe. It's a way of simplifying husbandry, so beginners who are already overwhelmed with all of the information can take something, run with it, and they're not going to mess things up. But misting during the day is not going to cause a respiratory infection. We've been misting during the day for years, decades. And so I think it was too easy for the online community. The online community loves sound bites. And saying something like you shouldn't mist during the day because the nighttime humidity is so much better gets warped into you shouldn't mist during the day because it'll cause a respiratory infection. So that's it. Saying one is better than the other is a lot different than saying that number A is going to kill your chameleon. But things get warped and turned around on social media, and the simplest form usually, and the simplest and most dramatic form usually rises to the surface. So the only problems I have with misting during the day is, number one, if it surprises the chameleon and it bothers them. We have these misters. If the mister is too close to the chameleon who's sitting there warm and basking and all of a sudden gets blasted by the cold water, that's not a good experience. So I don't like doing that. I don't like it when the chameleon has to be misted 5 times a day because they're dehydrated. That is not a problem with misting during the day. It's a problem that the chameleon is not getting the proper hydration. So those are the things that I'm going to be able to talk about. And as for, I don't know if Peter said that misting during the day will give a respiratory infection. You'd have to go to one of his Facebook pages and ask that question to get details on that. So I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to explain. I'll just say that I have not had a problem with misting during the day. So, yeah, James says respiratory infections come from stagnant air. Yes. Okay. So yeah, it's stagnant air, which is an excess of carbon dioxide, and so you're not getting what you need, and that stresses the immune system. And that's never good. So, all right. Oh, you know what? James is here. Oh my goodness. James, you still here? We need to have the ceremonial. Whoops. I just put these together too close. There we go. All right, everybody. Let's do a releasing of the fog. There's no chameleon in there right now. People worried about fogging during the day. Nah, not a problem. There's no chameleon in right there right now. This week, spearmint is going in this cage. So my little guy who has been in quarantine for a year and a half is now going to be able to finally go into a bioactive. Haven't seen the fog. The fog. Alex says, doesn't like the automatic misters. Yeah. The thing is, with automatic misters, it really depends on how you set the cage up. For example, if, my quarantine cages, since I have all of the branches in back, and then there's this wall of plants in between the mister and the branch structure, I have absolutely no problem with, by time the mist gets to where the chameleon is, it's a gentle mist. It's not a problem. It's just when you have your basking branch up close to the mist nozzles, that they can get blasted. And of course, if you're dealing with smaller chameleons, you just got to use your common sense. It's not about whether they like water. It's not about whether they're thirsty or not. It's about just physically being blasted. And Lisa says, just wanted a better explanation of something I've heard over and over. No mist when lights are on. Yeah, and that's a gross oversimplification. And I will say, unfortunately, that is necessary at times in our community because people do not like complication. They like it simple. And I run into this problem all the time. I mean, you guys are all here because you enjoy hearing the why behind everything. But I get so many people who take a look at my care guides and say, forget this. This is too complicated. I'm going to go with that little one-line thing that I hear on Facebook. That's so much easier to tell me what to do. And they don't care that it is factually incorrect. And so when we are putting together chameleon care information for the masses, especially if you're on Facebook, you need to really simplify things. And when you really simplify things, you lose a lot of information, that a lot of context that needs to go on there. So saying don't miss during the day, yeah, that loses a lot of context. It loses a lot of information. But when you're dealing with I call them the TikTok generation, you got to do things quick and you got to get that out. And so sometimes we have to say things that seem like, if you're experienced, that's crazy. But if you've got somebody who is just starting off, you got to give them something that they can understand and they don't have to think about, because they've got so many different things to think about. So as much as I am saying I don't really understand what's behind saying don't miss when the lights are off, I also say I think I understand why he's saying something so simplified, and it's not as easy as saying, oh, he's wrong. Well, there's a reason why he had to simplify things. So I'll just say it's not a clean yes, no. That's right. I hand this all the time. So, all right, all. I want to say thank you so much for joining me here and making this a wonderful Saturday afternoon. Just remember, this happens every Saturday at 12 noon. Sometimes we hang out and we talk about light subjects, and sometimes we have a full-blown seminar like today. So the next time I'm going to be, I will be on tomorrow at 5 p.m., Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific. I have Chameleon Chore Night, completely informal. I just sit and I make feeder dishes and we just talk about and hang out. So completely informal. Just come if you want to hang out with the community. Tuesday night at 5 p.m. Pacific is open question and answer session. That's the official office hours. You come and you ask any question you want about chameleons, and I answer it live. So hour and a half. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I guess I've been. We had a lot to talk about. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.